Hey, welcome back to the podcast. So, we are doing a quick hormone audit episode for someone of my audience. Her name is Cassie. She is 34 years old, mom of four sweet kiddos. And when I asked her what her biggest hormone concern was, she says that she has extreme irritability or mood swings during her luteal phase. She has some hair loss going on, and then she's also having some random spotting after her period has ended that's happening right before she ovulates again. She said that spotting this last cycle before she filled out this form lasted for 4 to 5 days. Um, and when I asked her like how this impacted her life, she said my luteal phase always feels brutal. I literally feel like a different person. So I want to dig into this and we're going to talk about this a little bit and what direction I would recommend for this person if we were on a call and we were talking about working together, and also just some things that they can start to do to implement right away. That's the whole idea of these audits. They are not to solve all of someone's problems. I have to keep in mind that I'm only getting a short snapshot of someone's history. I don't have the ability to ask them questions back. I'm just doing it from the form that they fill out, which reminds me, I really would like to do a couple of these audit episodes where I bring some of you guys on live with me and we record it. That way we could have more of a conversation and more of a back and forth. So if anybody's interested in doing that, I will drop a link in the show notes today for you to be able to sign up and just say, hey, I'm interested in doing like an audit episode with you. Um, I think that would be cool. And I think it would be helpful for us to be able to have a conversation. So, anyway, back to this client's audit. So, some of the things that, I always review, it looks like her sleep is great. It's where it needs to be. She says that she feels rested when she wakes up. She's already focusing on protein in her diet. She does consume 3 meals a day, snacks just as needed, but not always. That's good. One of the things that that tells me is that her blood sugar is probably pretty balanced when we, consume enough fuel and we don't feel the need to snack all throughout the day. That's a good sign to me. That tells me that you're not getting to the point with your blood sugar that you're like having these drop offs and you're getting like hangry and you're like, I've got to eat right now. And you're fisting, like potato chips in your mouth. So that's a good thing. She also doesn't do any intentional intermittent fasting. She does consume some caffeine, usually two shots of espresso, it's the occasional Coke, maybe an Alani every once in a while. The thing that I would say there is make sure that you're not having caffeine on an empty stomach, but otherwise, this is a pretty reasonable amount of caffeine for someone to have. Says that she feels like she's struggling to handle the stress in her life. And of course, when you're having such a struggle with your luteal phase, that's a big portion of your month. So that makes sense. Um, Her cycles are regular and she does track them. So that's excellent. If we were looking at her on the Happier Hormones roadmap, that would put her in the category kind of between like a basics Brittany is kind of where she would fall because she's taking, all this responsibility to be in tune with her body. She is tracking her cycles and really in tune with those. She's tells me here that she is tracking her basal body temperature along with that. She's paying attention to her cervical mucus. Um, Not doing LH strips or ovulation strips, but that's really okay for somebody that's not trying to get pregnant. It might be helpful if you're trying to avoid pregnancy, but once you get to the point that you're really in tune with your body and you've done this tracking for a while and you're not on any synthetic birth control that's impacting your cycle, you don't so much need those LH strips anymore to tell you that you're ovulating because you learn your body and you will know when you're ovulating. And again, I just talked about, like she would fall into the basic Brittany category. If you have no idea what that is, please go back and listen to episode 89 of the podcast where I break down the full Happier Hormones roadmap, these four different personas. You can kind of see where it is that you would land. It's very interesting. Okay, so then she goes on to share with me that her typical cycle length is 30 days, give or take 2 days, like could be 2 days shorter, could be 2 days longer, but that's about her normal, her average. Period cramps on average are about a 6 out of 10. As far as PMS symptoms, she reports the mood swings, increased feelings of depression, low energy, and carb cravings. And then the only issue, like she doesn't say she has heavy bleeding. She doesn't report any clots, but she does, of course, have that spotting between periods. Now, anytime that we have spotting between periods, we're going to wonder about progesterone levels. And given that the luteal phase feels so rough for her, that would also cause me to wonder about the progesterone levels. And are we making sufficient progesterone? And there can be a lot of reasons for that. But until we kind of have data to back up, like, yeah, we are making enough, or no, it doesn't really look like we are, then we're kind of just guessing. And there's two different ways, that we can really go about how we figure that out. One option is to do the Dutch test. I'm not going to get into all the specifics of the Dutch test, but I do have a previous podcast episode about Dutch testing. And I'm trying to flip back and find that number for you guys. That's episode 50. Now, I do think that Dutch testing is great. It gets us a lot of information. Um, but I really think what I would recommend in this scenario would be, again, the Mira tracker. And I know you guys have heard me talk a lot about that lately. If you want my full explanation of what Mira is and my review of using it myself, that's in episode 81 of the podcast. And the reason that I think that in this case, I would recommend the Mira system before I would go Dutch. There's a few different reasons, honestly. One of the biggest pieces being that Dutch testing is more of an expense, and you're only testing a 24-hour window of time. With the Dutch Complete, there is the option to do the Dutch cycle mapping, where you kind of map out an entire cycle, and you're not testing every single day, but you're testing multiple days out of the month. But that's basically what you're doing with the Mira device. You get to test your estrogen, your progesterone, your LH, and your FSH at home. You could do it every single day of a cycle if you wanted to. That's not always necessary. It's most of the time not necessary to do that. You instead test on targeted days so that we can map the entire cycle. And number one, it's more affordable. Number two, you get access to the data in real time. Whereas if you're doing a Dutch test, if you're doing, especially the Dutch cycle mapping test, it's going to be like a month or a month plus a week or two before we get those results back from the lab. And so I find that it's more helpful and more, I don't know what the word I want to use here. It helps you be more intuitive and connect the dots between, like, okay, these were my results today. These are the symptoms that I'm experiencing today. It helps connect those dots. So that would be the first thing. I do think in this situation, it's important to figure out, like, is the issue truly with the progesterone? Is it maybe that progesterone is okay, but we have an estrogen dominance issue? Um, and then even more important than that would be the aspect of, what are the minerals doing? Do we have any heavy metal issues here? One of the reasons that I suspect mineral deficiencies specifically are probably at play here in this case. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is a mama of four kiddos. She has had four pregnancies and four breastfeeding journeys within the last 10 years or less. And that's a big demand on your body. And you guys may have heard me tell it before, but with each pregnancy, we lose around 10% of our minerals. That doesn't account breastfeeding. All of those things are really depleting to our body and our mineral and vitamin stores. And it's really hard for us to replenish those, especially when we don't have the targeted data to back up exactly what we need to be targeting. Um, so I think that that could be really helpful to just kind of get a clear picture of where you need to focus your energy. She's not taking a lot of supplements. She's taking some chaseberry, some omega-3, and some magnesium glycinate. I love to see the magnesium glycinate. That's one that I recommend pretty regularly to almost everybody because we need so much magnesium and it gets depleted so quickly. So I love to see that. She tells me that like since she's been doing the chaseberry and the omega-3s for the past 3 months, she does seem like she has noticed a somewhat of a decrease in her luteal phase symptoms. So that's great. I would definitely continue those since it does seem like they're working. But again, I wonder, if there's not some opportunity here to support some specific minerals once we knew what was deficient or what was imbalanced, with some really specific targeted supplements that might help ease these symptoms a little more. This is a case of a person that's like, they're already doing a lot of the right things. And we just need to get this person that little bit of data to send us off in the right direction and feel confident that you're doing the right things. So, if you guys are listening to this audit and you would kind of like me to do an audit of your situation and tell you what my thoughts are, tell you what next steps I would recommend for you, there's always a link in the show notes for you to book a Happier Hormones clarity call with me where we would get on a call and chat about some of your big symptoms, big concerns, and I would outline for you what I would recommend next steps wise. As I mentioned earlier in the episode, I would like to do a couple of these hormone audits with you guys on the call with me. So I will put a link just kind of in this episode. If you are interested and willing to do that, that will be there. You can sign up and say, hey, I'm interested in that. I'm going to leave you guys there for today. If you have any questions, always reach out and I'll talk to you next week.